Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Vinpi Ignite PEVC Career Talk series. For those of you who don't know us, Vinpi is a pioneering not-for-profit platform driving gender diversity in the investing ecosystem by increasing women's participation as investors, capital allocators, and recipients of investment capital. We work closely with PEVC firms in helping them shape and execute on DEI strategies, including hiring more women across roles and levels. When we launched in 2020 and we heard our member PEVC firms saying we want to hire women but we can't find them, we were skeptical because we thought there are enough women keen on PEVC careers. In the last more than 4 years, WINPI has undertaken a number of initiatives aimed at supporting PEVC aspirants, including job bulletins, AMAs with industry leaders, boot camps with recruiters, and career fairs. Through these initiatives, we have also come to realize that the talent pipeline of women in PEVC is much thinner than we would have liked, and for various reasons. Ignite by WINPI is a platform designed to support the female talent pipeline in the PEVC industry. Ignite offers online career sessions, masterclasses, job vacancy information, and a profile bank of women interested in PEVC roles, accessible to WINPI member firms in an anonymized format. So when PEVC firms hire, they can access our profile repository for candidates. The profile bank is open to women at all levels, including those already in PEVC. And as I said before, we hide the candidate and firm names in the database that is shared with the hiring firms. Please join the WINPI Career Network WhatsApp group to join our profile repository. This WhatsApp group will also keep you updated on all our sessions and with information on job openings, which we keep posting there. I'm sharing the link on the chat box below. Now, before we move on to today, a reminder that if we do not find your name in the registration list, we will have no choice but to remove you from the session. So please either update your display name or fill out the registration form, and link is in the chat box. Moving on to today, our topic for today is mastering the interview from preparation to presence. In this session, you will have the opportunity to watch live mock interviews of our lucky draw winners, Janvi and Pratiti, and gain valuable insight and practical tips directly from our speakers, which will help you prepare and ace interviews at top PEVC firms. And kudos to both the participants who stepped up for the live mock interview today. Very courageous of you. It really does take a lot of courage to put yourself out there in front of everyone. It's not easy, but it's going to be one of the best ways to learn and grow. Introducing our speakers, Kriti Gupta, Vice President at Peak 15 Partners. Kriti is a VC professional at Peak 15 Partners with an engineering degree from IIT Bombay and an MBA from Harvard. She co-founded an agtech startup and began her career at Deutsche Bank before moving to venture capital. She has worked with both domestic and Silicon Valley funds focused on Indian startups ecosystem. Surbhi Garg, she is a vice president at Trifecta Capital, currently a VC investing in growth and late-stage tech startups across consumer internet, B2B, SaaS, fintech, and digital platforms in India. Previously led 15 plus tech acquisitions worth over $500 million at Reliance Jio Strategic Investments for Jio platforms and Reliance Retail, involving both primary and secondary transactions. Now, some housekeeping notes. The session is being recorded and an edited version of the recording will be made available for future reference. We will start with Surbhi, who will be interviewing Janvi, and then move on to Kriti, who will be interviewing Pratiti. Each interview will last for approx 20 minutes max, after which the speakers will share their feedback on the interviews and then some tips on also how to prepare better. You can type your questions anytime during the session on the chat box. We will pick them up at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, let's get started. Over to you, Surbhi and Janvi. All the best, Janvi.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Tanvi. Very exciting to be speaking with you.
Hi, Surbhi. Excited to speak to you as well.
Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm sure it's going to benefit everybody who's on the call. So thanks on everyone's behalf. Since they know a little bit about me, but not so much about you, I thought it'd be lovely to start with a brief intro and background of yourself and what makes you excited about a career in private equity or VC.
Yes, definitely. I'd be happy to walk you through my background. So I graduated from Christ University in 2023, and I was a part of the finance and investment cell where I was the vice president of the research and analysis wing. And that was my starting point to just into the world of finance, understanding how finance works. I got exposure to networking with people, talking to juniors about how they manage their money, and it was also during COVID, so I binged watch a lot of Shark Tank, and I think that was a point when I realized, oh, it's amazing how investors make quick decisions on investing in companies within just one pitch, and that really intrigued me. And I always felt like, okay, this is something I really need to research about and discover more on how people take decisions on investing huge amounts of money into businesses within in just one or two meetings, and what is it that founders put themselves out there that makes it so attractive for investors to invest in. So I think, that was a point when I realized, okay, I do want to make a career in PVC eventually. And I graduated from Christ. I got placed in KPMG India in deal advisory evaluations. So I got more into the technicals of finance in much depth. I learned about valuing not just startups or like portfolio companies for PVC funds, but bigger companies as well, doing, PPA evaluations, doing impairment testing, putting my foot into different kind of valuation engagements, really honed my technical skills. And then I took a bold step to start my own venture. It's
Wow, congratulations on
yeah,
that.
so I have two ventures right now. So I a very two offbeat ventures. So one is I'm a director and co-producer of a tech comedy show. So we have toured across India since 2023. So I manage their entire India tour and their business here. And I also wanted to get more in depth of like the fintech industry. So I had an idea floating for a while since the past 1 year. So I thought, okay, maybe I should just try to, put my foot in and see where that idea goes and at least build a MVP product. So I'm still in the idea and the MVP stage. It's been around 9 months. So yeah, that's my story and that's my narrative and my background.
That's very exciting, and it takes a bit of a courage to, shift gears and be an entrepreneur. I feel entrepreneurs are just a different breed, totally.
Yes.
Uh, I'm sure you're experiencing it firsthand yourself.
Yeah.
Uh, since you're already dabbing with entrepreneurship right now, Janvi,
Uh-huh.
so are you still thinking about a career in private equity VC, or where your mind is at? That would be helpful to know.
Yes, so I am thinking of getting back into the PVC space. I did an internship during college in a early stage venture fund, where I was doing mostly portfolio management. I wasn't on the deal side, but portfolio management and exits. And I learned a lot in that process. I was talking to founders almost every day, tracking KPIs, reading financial statements, and that opportunity was a very big opportunity during college for me. So I learned a lot. And during my phase of entrepreneurship, I felt like I was a little detached with the networking and the learning in terms of getting people's opinion, getting validation, because working in silos really bridges, creates a gap. So I thought maybe getting back to PVC would give me more exposure and learning, and also, a little bit of entrepreneur grit and, working
Course.
swiftly. So I thought probably just getting back to the space and learning much more and going back eventually into entrepreneurship would be great at this point. So yeah, that's where I am at currently.
Oh, that's helpful. That's helpful. And since you've seen both sides, sort of, valuations at KPMG and now, an entrepreneur yourself, I
Yeah.
wanted to understand a little bit on, are you excited? So you yourself have picked an idea to build a business, but
Yeah.
generally, if you wear an investor's hat, any specific industry, any specific market trend, any specific startup, that makes you very exciting, where you might have spent time, understanding it in a bit more detail? Or if not, what makes you excited about it if you were to think from an investor's point of view to put money in that?
Okay. So for me, the core three things I would look at any business in any industry would be three M's. That is market, model, and management. So in terms of the market, I would see, okay, how scalable this technology or this product is going to be. What is the kind of in-depth user research has the founder done, or the product is going to go? What is the market size? What is their customer, like the total addressable market that they want to target? Even if it's 1% or 2% of the TAM, how much money they would be able to generate, and how will that TAM ever grow in future? That's the scalability part of it. I will look into that. The second part is the business model, like if it's B2B, B2C, is it B2B2C? Because while I was building this venture myself, I transitioned from B2C to B2B2C because I felt like the unit economics weren't working. So
Mhm.
yeah, just the model I feel is a very core factor to know whether this business is any business is worth investing or not, because that's going to be a deciding factor as to a how long your customers are going to be into the business. How can you scale that business with that particular model? Will you be getting recurring revenue? Will your cash flows be constant, and will your cash flows be growing? So yeah, I think these three things are very important under the business model aspect of it. And management, which probably weighs in like 25% of the entire whole thing, would be how good the team is, how qualified the founder is. Having a technical founder and having a founder who executes well is a great mix to have. So I think like for every early stage VC, or a seed stage investment you would do, you would bet on the founder most of the time, because there are startups that don't have revenue coming in, so they're still at pre-idea, pre-revenues. So yeah, I think these are the three M's I would focus on if I have to invest in any industry. If I had to say fintech, so because I've been like researching about fintech, and also trying to build one, I think in terms of fintech, I would see margins as a very important factor, because
Mhm.
in fintech, what we see, founders and investors especially say that the margins in fintech companies are very, very little. They're very thin. So how can you scale that margins into a bigger profitable company is something I would look into very, very seriously. And also the kind of revenue you're getting, right? So if you're doing a B2C, are you okay taking with your target market? Say your target market is like the top 10 or 20% of the income group, then sure, like the probability that you can have a small customer base, but still you would be getting revenue. But if you're targeting lower income group people, the margins are going to be very low. People willing to pay that amount of money? So these are the kind of question marks investors ask, or like as founders also we think. So how can you basically scale, like improve those margins, or try to figure out another way of earning revenue is something I would look into very deeply. So then you would get into shifting your models like if you want to do a direct to business or like direct to
Mhm.
customers. So yeah, very, very intricate details like this I would particularly look into. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I had not thought of 3M as a framework, but of course that's the approach
I think that's a
we
very like
follow.
that's a
Yeah,
yeah, this is a very
we have
basic
a
framework.
5M.
Oh, okay, I would love to
Just
know the
kidding.
other two
Uh,
items.
there was a question on my mind. How would you go about validating or answering some of these questions? So, what
Okay.
would your approach be? Like, would you start with a hypothesis about a company or an industry and then try to validate certain aspects of it? Like, and how would you go about that validation? Because whether you are in, so I cannot speak on behalf of early stage. I did that really early in my career, and I've been in growth for a while now.
Fair
And in
enough.
growth, we look at data, and there are a lot of
Yes.
numbers, etc.
Yes.
But still, at both stages, we do have to answer the unknowns. We have to figure out,
Yeah.
uh, how to go about it, how to build a knowledge of an industry, and there are different ways to approach it. So, what would your approach be? In fact, Maybe you could cite examples from when that you started working on your own startup idea. How did you go about answering some of these questions for yourself?
Right. So for me, it's been quite a journey itself. So when I started, for me, the idea came from talking to one customer only. So I was on the way back from the airport. I spoke to a customer who would be very interested, and I thought, okay, maybe there are customers like them in huge amounts. And I realized the total addressable market is around 25 million users. And even if I'm able to tap into 1%, I think that's great as a starting point. So I started doing my research very deeply into the industry itself, like the wealth tech industry itself. Trying to figure out who are the competitor companies. Also, try to figure out why are companies not doing this particular product or building this particular product, or are there existing companies that started a different business and put this as an add-on product. So I did the company and the comparable company research, I would say, to know what positioning I would be in eventually, say 5 years down the line, if I had to compete with these companies.
How much of this research would be primary, secondary? What type of sources did you rely upon to build this understanding?
So I did primary research only with my customer base, the target customers. So I would go talk to gig workers. I would, go to these dark stores. Sometimes I would just book an auto, like for no reason, just to talk to them. But yeah, so I think to understand what the customer needs, I would do primary research. In terms of what companies are doing, and what the industry landscape looks like, I would mostly rely on secondary research. I would read industry reports from PV, like private equity and VC firms like Bloom, Trifecta, and then Peak XV, and I would listen to podcasts. And I would also read, MBBs have very comprehensive reports that they generate, so I would read their reports as well, and mostly go into the company research through their website, what their business model is, what are their target customers. I would actually even try on the apps. I would download, say, Jupyter, and see how they basically function. So yeah, so this was my divide of like primary and secondary research. Yes.
That's helpful. That's helpful. And when you think about valuations, right,
Right.
for startups, um, uh, can you take me through some example of the valuation exercise that you've done, which is
Yes.
more relevant for a startup? I know from your CV you've worked on some of those valuations. Then what are some of the nuances, right, that you came across? What was
Right.
the data seeking exercise that you did when you were trying to value them? How was it
Right.
different for an early stage versus if you've done a growth stage, valuation?
Yes.
It
Very
may
interesting.
not necessarily be VCPE type, you can take mature industries also when we talk about growth stage, but would be great to know, how did
Yes.
you approach some of those?
Yes. So I have two companies from two different industries. So one is a space tech startup that I mentioned in my CV itself. So I got an opportunity to value this company, and of course we were a member of three. So I took up the market research part of it, and this space tech startup was their core idea was to send satellites into the space. So basically deploying satellites and like making rockets and sending into space was the basic product. Now, this company, I think, was around 5 years old. They've started making revenue just 3 years ago. So we did not have enough data in terms of building cash flows. Generally, you would want at least 5 years to 7 years of data to build a 5 to 10 period, future cash flow. But still, we did have a fair idea on how we could probably extrapolate, get data, and uh, uh, create cash flows for future period. That was your income method. But again, when I come to the market research, I mostly relied on precedent transactions, that's comparable transactions, and I digged through a lot of data, and I used a lot of tools like PitchBook, Traction, Cap IQ, S&P Cap IQ, which is very useful source. I not only just Indian space tech companies, but I looked into space tech companies outside India, in the US, in the Europe, who are into the same space, and basically figured out for, between pre-series A, series A, series B, series C, what are the kind of valuations these companies, raised money at, and did that comparable transaction, figured out the multiple. So that is one. And I think the main KPI for space tech startups or any tech company that don't have recurring revenue, but it's a goal based KPI, right? Like you send you work on a satellite to make a satellite for 2-3 years, and if your satellite launches and becomes successful, that's the biggest metric. So so that was the metric we tracked as a part of the transactions. How many satellites were there comparable companies able to launch in this much period of time, and how is my core, like my primary company, doing in terms of that? So does that validate the valuation that they are seeking? So I think these two main aspects I looked into while I was doing market research, especially comparable transactions. Of course, comparable companies as well, because you're looking at it's difficult for comparable companies because, like I said, the KPIs are very, very niche for a tech startup, right? So comparable transaction was the most reliable source for us. So I think that was a very big learning. I did a lot of research and also read through a lot of research papers to understand just how space tech works, and like what are the kind of R&D costs that involve to actually get to a point to launch, right? So that was one of the main factors while I was valuing this company. And another part is the growth stage. So I can, for example, I haven't mentioned this in my CV, but I worked for valuing a chain of hospitals based in South India. And they have a group of hospitals. So I valued one group which had multiple hospitals under that group itself. And so I worked on, again, valuing the company using both income and market approach. I think market approach was very interesting because I got to work on multiple KPIs, such as, as basic as RPOB, your average rate per occupied bed, and then how many patients they are getting every day, and the average cost per patient they're earning. So these are multiple KPIs that I worked on, and grouping all those KPIs, because there were multiple hospitals under one umbrella. So grouping all those KPIs and averaging it out, and also building the cash flows based on their past revenues. I think averaging both the market approach and the income approach, again, we use something known as the football field to eventually come to a range, right? So that was something very interesting to me. And I think when you talk about growth stage companies, the best advantage is that we have a lot of financial backing, like data, in terms of, we know how, like, this hospital has been operational for 20 years. We have seen how they themselves have, like, earning calls. So earning calls is one of the ways, apart from the financial statements, earning calls is one of the best ways to know what the company will do in the future. Right. So again, relying on earning calls helps us understand what is the growth rate that we apply on these cash flows for the future, right? So that was one. And again, one more part of doing income method of valuation is the WACC, right? Weighted average cost of capital.
I was going to ask you that. And that's the trickiest.
The discount rate. Again, for the discount rate, you would take comparable companies to know what their WACCs are, their WACCs are. Then you basically compute your cost of capital and figure out a discount rate and apply that discount rate on your enterprise value, on your FCF to get an enterprise value. So it's a very, very interesting process. Yeah. So
Between the two, did you find one more interesting than the other?
I actually found no, the space tech startup valuation interesting, to be
Mm.
honestly, because I got to research and do a lot more. Although I would realize the kind of frustration people would get while digging into one specific data for a very long period, but
Mm.
I like to go in depth of things.
Mm.
So I got to learn a lot in that process. Even working on the hospital engagement really helped me extrapolate, do a lot of sensitivity analysis um,
Mm.
for the valuation. But yeah, out of the two, I would choose a space tech startup.
Interesting, interesting. I think we're almost out of time.
Okay.
We do have 10 minutes after both the interviews for any Q&A, but if you have
Yes.
anything to ask from me, happy to do that right now in the 1 minute that we have left.
Okay, I actually prepared a set of
Oh,
questions.
wow.
But I would like to ask you, like, what is your favorite investment you have done in Trifecta till date? Like,
I
After the
cannot
interviews,
have
also we'll
favorites.
have.
I cannot. It is like asking a mom, right? Who's their favorite child? Uh,
but like one or two most interesting, like,
See, before I started working on growth stage investing at Traffic, I was doing M&A,
right.
which is also sort of investing exercise. But when I joined Trifecta, even at growth stage, there are a lot of companies to evaluate, which is generally a myth,
Yes.
right? That growth stage is saturated or there are lesser companies.
Yeah.
And I feel, every company evaluation was a great learning because it was a new industry, new business. Like I said, lot of data to churn, public comps to look at, competitors to look at, very much more mature businesses, right, which you're
Right.
evaluating.
Fair
So I
enough.
really do not have a favorite. I'm not lying.
Nice.
But all of these were interesting journeys and different learnings from each investment.
Cool. That's interesting. Like any specific industry you like look forward to invest in.
Yeah, yeah. We are sector agnostic at Trifecta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have done fintech, we have done financial services, we have done
Mhm.
consumer tech. We did a couple of B2B as well. Yeah, SaaS is something which we've not yet been able to invest in. Well, that remains a gap in our portfolio.
Interesting. I think in the last 10 minutes, probably I'll ask
Of
some
course, yes, no
questions.
problem. Thank you so much, Jana. I
Thank you
really
so much,
appreciate you
Sylvie.
doing
This
this.
is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Surbi and Janvi. It was a delight listening to both of you. Very nice. We move on to Kriti now. Kriti and Pratiti.
Awesome. Cool.
Hi,
Hi,
Kriti.
Pratiti. Hi, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
So, Pratiti, I have your resume in front of me, but
yeah.
just for the benefit of everyone and myself too, like if you just want to take a couple of minutes to just walk me through your resume, how you've made some of the decisions that you have so far, and like how you're thinking about venture capital as next step.
Sure, thank you so much. So I have had quite a non-linear career path. So I started. So my grad is in political science, international relations, and economics, which is completely a different line from what I'm doing right now. So while working, during my grad time, I decided to work with some startups. I decided to intern with some startups during COVID time. I interned with ClearTax. I interned with Goodera. I interned with Airmeet, and there some of which are Peak 15 portfolio companies. So I interned with them during the COVID time, and so I realized that I wanted to work in the ecosystem for a longer period of time. I love learning about business models. I love learning about new industries, new trends, how new companies were formed, but I wanted to see them from an investor's point of view. As there were a lot of business models, I didn't want to stick to any particular one. That's when I joined. After grad, I joined SAS Labs, another one of your portfolio company in the CEO office. And there I worked with Ankita, and I was working on a product called HealthWise. I worked on quite some strategic projects. And post SAS Labs, I joined NIIF. I was there for about 1 year. I worked in the investor relations department, wherein I worked on some critical projects. It was more of investor relations, product strategy, as well as investments to some extent. I worked on some critical projects like shaping a fund strategy for a proposed greenfield renewables platform, as well as working for the private equity fund for the growth fundraise for the growth equity fund of NIF. And Post that, have been associated with Axion for a while, and at Axion primarily worked on investments operations across B2B marketplace. It was a consulting project, 3 month. So investments, B2B marketplaces, as well as VSAS. And currently I'm associated with a newly founded Singapore-based fund advisory placement firm. So where I am working across the entire spectrum with fund managers across the entire spectrum of asset classes, ranging from primaries to primary growth equity to infrastructure, to help them raise institutional LP capital, as well as I also work with them on helping in buy side deal sourcing. So that's a brief about me. So yeah, happy to delve deeper.
No, this is super helpful, Pratiti. And like as you think about making a switch into another venture firm, like what's top of mind for you? What do you enjoy about your work today, and what do you think is missing?
So it's been 2 months at Albion. So I've been enjoying my work very much because I get to learn about the entire spectrum of private markets, different asset classes, and everything. But on the in hindsight, I still want to go back to buy side 2 years down, 1 or 2 years down the line, because I feel that I'm more good on the investment part of things, evaluating part of things, and learning about different business models than help fund managers rather than help fund managers raise capital. Now, for me, one key question is that because I've been exposed to many asset classes, which asset class do I want to go back into? So for me, it will be growth or buyouts, because I mean, venture I used to love very much, but it's more about in venture you do not learn you are not exposed to the much of the financial rigor, right? So I want to get a complete hindsight view of things. So I think growth or buyouts make more sense of me, whether it be in infra or direct. So yeah,
So you said infra or?
infra or direct investments in companies. Yes. Yeah.
And as you think about the buyout landscape today, Pratiti, like what are some of the sectors that are most interesting? Um,
So for buyout sectors, I believe buyouts are more about sectors which have predictable cash flows, as well as the recurring predictable cash flows, and the competitive positioning should be good. So I think traditional sectors would be good for buyouts rather than venture, which needs breakout sectors. Traditional sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, healthcare, manufacturing, financial services. Of course, these are three top of my mind.
got it. Got it. Well, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Of course, I come from a very different world. I come from a super early stage side of the world. So at least I live literally, I may or may not have a lot of overlap with some of the sectors that you're mentioning. But maybe, Pratiti, what we can do for the rest of the interview would be, I would love for you to pick one of the buy side
Yes.
investments that you worked on. Maybe just talk me through what the business is in 2 lines, maybe 2 reasons why what you liked in the deal, and also 2 big risks associated with that deal, resulting in
Sure.
returns.
So I will just walk you through one of my deals at Axion. So this was AI powered. This was a USD 750 million investment that we were proposing in
750
a
million or 750K?
sorry 750K, sorry about that.
Yeah.
750K investment in a AI powered trade finance marketplace, basically in Africa. And so we were so this was a 12 million USD 12 million pre-valuation. We were I mean, this was the total funding round was USD 3 million. So we were proposing to inject 750K at a 12 million pre-valuation, and post was 15, and with a 5% ownership target. And so about the business, this business was basically, so I will just walk you through the problem statement. So in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa particularly, what the problem is that there's a dearth of working capital loans, both in terms of timing, as well as both in terms of capacity, to this SME trade exporters across sub-Saharan Africa. So the business of this business model was particularly an AI powered trade finance marketplace, which was simplifying the process of issuing working capital loans to trade SME trade exporters across sub-Saharan Africa through an AI based underwriting engine, basically, which did not go for traditional data points like which banks and DFIs usually use to underwrite, but used to use alternative data for thin file customers like alternative data like buyer repayment behavior, as well as invoice terms and everything, to provide a short working capital loans of 30 to 90 days, just solving the liquidity constraints at the point of trade. So this was the main problem, which was the main solution that they were working on. And so what I liked about the deal basically was, the first, they had the proprietary moat was the AI powered underwriting engine. Now if we see banks, if we see DFIs, when we see so there's a huge gap between thin file customers and the banks and DFIs underwriting machines, right? Engines, right? So banks and DFIs are too bureaucratic, they just cannot meet demand and time. So this firm, the African firm, had actually mastered a AI powered credit underwriting engine, which particularly took unconventional data for thin file customers like buyer repayment behavior, as well as logistics data, APIs, etc., to kind of underwrite the loans to the customers. And on top of that, as the data came pulling in, they had the entire, so they had kind of they became they had the potential to become the data provider, as well as the as well as the loan underwriter, because they were having the proprietary data sets. And another thing that I liked was that they were solving for a local access, basically local trade specific corridors. I mean, rather than startups who target pan Africa or pan Asia, these guys, what they were doing is that they were solving for particular corridors which had friction, Kenya, UAE, or Nigeria, UK. So there was a local market team on the ground which had the expertise regards the foreign exchange and everything, so how this things worked and everything. But we ended up passing on the deal because so we ended up passing over the deal because, first, the Nigeria corridor had real execution risk. So Nigeria algorithmic lending, there are some particular there's some particular constraints over there. So the geographic political risk was too much for us to underwrite at such an early stage. Second, the risk that we had, that we for the second risk was that they had only raised around USD 700K in debt. So, and they needed additional around some amount in warehousing lines. So basically, if we funded this business, we would be funding a lending business, which was not a on balance sheet lender, which was not in our thesis. So we had a fintech comma embedded finance thesis. We were not comfortable with uh, you know uh, investing in balance sheet lenders directly. And of course, there's the other risk of the AI model being too early stage, and you never know how that turns out, right? So we proposed that we would come in at Series B post they have raised another round. And yeah, so that's it.
Got it. Got it. That's super helpful. And Pratiti, like, is there, as you think about like buyouts being the direction that you want to go in, have you worked on any buyout transaction before?
No, so I've not worked on buyout on the buy side, to be honest. But I have worked on I'm working on buyouts and helping them raise funds. So that includes currently I'm helping a pan-European fund called it invests in industrials and manufacturing tech. So I'm helping them raise funds from institutional investors. So it while so we do a lot of portfolio level modeling, doing the DCFs of the portfolio companies to kind of understand whether the whether the fund the returns that the funder the funder projecting to that's in terms with what the LPs are seeking. So I've not exactly worked in buyout on the buy side, but I'm helping them raise funds. So that gives a kind of a hindsight view into the entire process, into the entire mechanics of how a buyout fund works, how leverage is more important for buyout than minority than growth, or this venture where where leverage is not so significant. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is helpful. And Pratiti, like, from your internships in some of the companies and startups that you worked in, any learnings on the operational side for yourself? Like, what part of operations, day-to-day operations, did you enjoy, if at all?
So I think it was more of strategy and operations both. So learnings would be three key learnings, I would say, on top of my mind. So first would be This might be a bit off the track. So most people, when they think of startup CEO office, they think it's a very glorified role. It's about strategy and strategizing the GTM, strategizing which product lines you launch next. But it's also about a lot of hustle and operations. It's also about a lot of hustle and operations. You have to work across various databases to get things running. So at startups, basically a lesson in, I mean, it's a great lesson. I mean, it's a mini MBA, because I intend to go for an MBA 2 years down the line. So in startups, I believe is the best way to start if you are looking for a career in investing, or if you're looking for a career in any other line. Startups would be the best place to start, because they give you the operating muscle. And two other key learnings are that, first. So while the macroeconomic like macroeconomy and the the sector tailwinds matter a lot for a startup to thrive and capitalize on the next big opportunity, what matters the most is the team, the management, and the execution bias for execution. Because at SaaS Labs, at ClearTax, what I've seen is that the even though we were facing some kind of headwinds at during COVID times, very less, but also, I mean, the execution vision of the management team was what steered us through those difficult times. And third, currently for in this environment, I would choose that it's a gamble between profitability and growth and profitability. So I would choose profitability. I mean, even for early stage startups, I understand growth is important and you burn cash at a high rate, but given the economic circumstances in mind, you have to prioritize profitability at some point. So yeah, that's it.
No, I think first of all, like I think really appreciate you having a point of view on some of these things. I see where you're coming from. Also, like very good to see that you've done different types of work. Not only have you worked in some companies, but also early stage, growth stage, and now you're on the fundraising side. So incredible that you've been able to do so much in such little time out of college. This was great. At least I don't have any more questions. I know we are up on time almost too. Prakriti, any question I can answer for you?
I have a list of questions actually.
Please.
Right now, I'll ask two questions actually for you, Kriti. So you have been in early stage investing for quite some time, and you also have an operating background. So what do you think? I mean, if you, so this is a personal question. So if you were given the choice to go back to a startup vis-a-vis keep working at peak 15 in an investing role, which one would you choose and why?
In the least number of words, I'm a little too realistic and not hyper optimistic enough. I'm better off as an investor than an operator.
Okay, got it. And Kriti, what trends do you see in the? I mean, what sectors do you see emerging to be breakout sectors in the economy for the next 5 years? And I mean, yeah, what sectors do you think thriving from an early stage perspective, both new and both incumbent?
Yeah, no, honestly, pretty contrary to some of the sectors you mentioned. Like, I think AI is going to be a big game changer. So I'm watching out for AI and the applications it can have across all sectors. In my view, in 1 year, there will be no AI investor because AI will be everywhere. So you're pretty much like going to it's going to be ubiquitous. Over and above that, I think there's a lot of interest in some of the deep tech sectors, defense, aeronautics, starting to see a lot of like high quality companies come up. And then, of course, consumer and fintech continues to be evergreen sectors given the consumption rate and the GDP growth rate of the country. But that I would say, like almost everything is getting a new flavor today with AI, and that's what we are excited about.
And another question that I had from my side is that we see that a lot of investors, I mean, this is more from the LP side of things, a lot of investors are prioritizing evergreen fund structures. So, I mean, does Peak 15 have any, so two questions here. Does Peak 15 have any, interest of going into venturing into early stage venture debt? And second, raising evergreen funds. So, might be a stupid question, but
No,
anyways.
no, it's a very smart question, Pradeep. It's actually a very strategic question. I don't think I can answer it on this forum uh, until we've kind of decided through things, but it's something we think about. But it's a very good question.
Thank you so much. That's, I mean, I will ask the different questions later. I have four more questions. I will ask them later.
Oh God.
Sorry, I ask a lot of
Oh,
questions.
no, no, this is great. This is great.
Thank you.
Best
Thank you
of
so
luck.
much,
All the
Kriti.
best.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kriti. That was really nice and interesting. We can open it for feedback now.
Basis these two interviews which we did on the call and past experience of interviewing some other candidates, just a couple of points I think everyone could keep in mind when interviewing, because mostly in first interview the goal is to also know the candidate, about their experience, even if they've not worked in VC, PE, how excited they are about this world, about the startup world. uh, you know how does, like, how do they feel about being naturally curious, etc. So some of just these are some of the guidelines, which could help bring out some of those aspects. um, a lot of our work actually depends on understanding new businesses, new areas, new industries, uh, which where you could think through, how you would go about it, with who are the people that you would speak with, who are the people who can help you understand the nuances of these businesses. Because in a lot of sectors where founders are building disruptive business models, there have been incumbents, there have been traditional businesses which have existed. So how could you approach some of that existing knowledge in the minds of people to build a first hand grounds up understanding and clarity on the nuances of those industries, customers, suppliers, etc. Um, and you can think through a framework in which you would like to bring those aspects out to the interviewer. I think that helps the interviewer understand your line of thinking and approach, because it is very important that you feel excited about this work, right? It is really day in and day out trying to learn new things and trying to understand people, trying to understand businesses. And a lot of this work actually comes from speaking with other people. So identifying who are the right people across the value chain, some of those things you could highlight during these interactions. Also, if you're tracking, if you're excited about this space, one thing you can do is track like a sector, like Kriti was saying, right? In early stage, what is exciting to peak 15? See what the funds are talking about. What are the emerging sectors which everyone is excited about? Try to track that sector and form an independent view, even though you're not actively working in a private equity VC fund, and highlight what you like about it, why do you like it. If you think there are some interesting founders you've spoken with in that space, definitely try to bring out some of those conversations as part of the first meeting itself. So the interview gets, gets the idea that you're really excited about it, you've put in some work. Whether like I am growth stage, Kriti is from early stage, we both look at very different things. But the core of the business still remains the same across stages. And at growth stage, I can tell you, one of the things which would definitely excite us is many of the tech companies have now listed, right, in the public markets. So if you have a natural curiosity towards seeing this journey of startup from the founding stages to all the way, being a public company and then performing in the public markets, you can spend some time understanding one or two breakout companies in the public markets and talk about it. If you are interviewing at growth stage and you're interested in growth stage, um, giving the interviewer some flavor of how do you think about how public markets are performing, especially tech companies, as an independent, observer of the markets. That could also, help the interviewer understand your breadth of understanding about the industry. Those were just some of the ideas on my mind.
Maybe I'll just add one or two things to what Surbhi already mentioned, and then I'll just add some VC context. I guess those are the two things I'll do. In terms of, I think what really makes for a good interview, there's two things. I think one is just articulation. It is very, very key to be able to communicate whatever insight you have or whatever like piece of information you want to share in as few words as possible, because you only have the like if you say too many things, then maybe the most important thing gets lost. So I think just fewer words, more structure really helps. That comes through preparation. There are some obvious questions that you'll find across all funds. So just have a very like dot to dot, word to word answer ready, because I think that just sets the meeting and the interview for more success. I think the second thing is just curiosity. I think curiosity is very important in the venture capital side of business. One obvious way to demonstrate curiosity is like by the quality of questions you ask towards the end. So that's again a piece of preparation that you can effectively do and make sure that like that lands well. And given that happens towards the end of the interview, it's also a good way to kind of leave a mark. So those are the two I would say are like a little more like tactical pieces of feedback, which is can both be solved with preparation. I think otherwise, just like from a venture capital perspective, I'll just take a step back and answer like what do people actually look for, right? And how you demonstrate that in the interview or in your preparation. I think it's also a very personal choice. But largely, people really look for folks who are eternally curious, who are very willing to learn something new and then also unlearn whatever it is that they've learned. So you kind of go on this learning, unlearning journey this entire time. And so just the pace and how quickly you can go up and down matters, as well as how often do you want to go down, up and down that path matters. I think today with GPT and everything else, like knowledge is really democratized. So just like use it to the core, be very curious. If you pick a sector, if you like a certain company, if there's something you've heard in the passing, or you just opened Twitter and you saw a tweet about some company, or your friend mentioned something else in the passing, just in that moment, pick up the phone, just learn 3 more things about that same aspect. It really starts to compound. And I think that is really what I've noticed over time. People who do well in VC are people who, at every incremental opportunity they get, they are very curious to learn more. I think over and above that, just kind of having, I think this came more from Janvi, but like I think this ability to be able to meet a lot of people. Now, some may call it networking, but like realistically, the way I think about it is just like, how can you get more net new insights and net new like data points in your head so that you can start connecting the dots and hence kind of think about things more actively. So combining curiosity along with like just having this network and kind of keeping on generating insights, I think those two things create well for a very killer combination. And this is like truly the way to stand out long term in VC. And to be honest, like even in interviews, some of these things start showing up largely around this aspect of being very highly prepared for those 1 or 2 sectors, and being able to articulate that in as few words. Yeah.
We have a few questions, if we want to take. So Divya, we have a question from Divya.
Yeah.
She says, I just wanted to understand that if one is looking to transition to PE/VC space after spending considerable amount of time in valuations, how should one prepare for such interviews, or how can one prepare for such transition?
Yeah. I can take it for VC. Look, I think in VC, you will find people from all sorts of backgrounds actually being able to do well. And again, it will just really boil down to pick a sector or two. Like right now, I think it's pretty obvious with everything that's happening in AI that like it's going to be a big game changer. Be at the forefront of it. And if that means like reading n number of articles, n number of books, research papers, just try and get as deep into it as you can. And by the way, if on the alternate, your preference is to do something more CPG or consumer brands, again, like basically immerse yourself into the startup ecosystem and you will start learning from other people. As you start learning from other people, some of that will start forming your point of view also. And that will really help with the transition. In terms of how you prepare for such interviews, to be honest, like there is no gospel, which is why like, being truly curious about something really helps to get through the interview. But I would just say all resources are available online today. It's about picking a sector or picking a theme and being like very, very true to it, and then going into as much depth that nobody else will. But Surbhi, you should add.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with what Kriti has said, because I think this is one industry which can truly absorb people from diverse backgrounds, and there is appetite for it and there is openness to it. Because the inherent trait, like Kriti has said so many times, is natural curiosity, and there are ways to demonstrate it. But you do have to put in the effort and the work before these interviews to be able to demonstrate it. You can always direct the interviewer to that line where you can say, like, that though I have worked in this space, but this is what I've been spending my time on because I'm so excited about this industry. And they would pick up, that thread and want to talk more about it. So you spend that time and effort. And given, your question is specifically about valuations, that skill is definitely very helpful when you come to growth stage, right? Because you do have a lot of data to analyze and decide, how to fair value a company. Well, there are nuances, okay. They say valuation is art, science, etc., all of those things. But you can then, leverage this experience to talk about, like when I was speaking with Janvi, try to understand what type of valuations she has done across growth stage, early stage. What did you like? What type of information did you seek? That just shows, right? What depth did you go into? How did you approach it if you did not have information? How did you approach it if you did not have comps? Because that skill, like in early stage, you don't have comps. So you do have to approach valuation very differently as compared to growth stage. So the work experience can be shown in a light where it is relevant, to the interview. But the most important aspect is, even if you're not working in PEVC, to be able to show that you're really excited about this space and this is what you're like thinking about, day and night. Because it is truly, you can spend as much time as possible across different industries, founders, new industries, old industries, etc., to form your view. And like Kriti said, right, it starts coming out in interviews if you have done that.
Thank you, Surbhi. Thank you, Kriti. That was really helpful.
Thank you, Surbhi and Kriti. Do you have, I know Janvi and Pratiti, you have a lot of questions. So since you said that, you have a list of questions, but I think we are also a bit up over time. So maybe you can email us. Sorry, Kriti. Yeah.
I'm happy to go for another 5 minutes if the rest of the room has questions too.
All right, we can take that then. Janvi, would you like to ask your questions?
Yeah, I was actually typing down my question as we speak, but I'll just ask directly. So, I mean, this is for everybody as well in the group, if that helps. But if you were starting your career over today, what are the technicals and the soft skills would you essentially double down, given that AI is also taking over a lot of roles in jobs, and also with the with the changing Indian private market space? So how do we brace for the upcoming market in the PVC industry, especially because it's a very niche industry, very highly network driven? So what are your tips or suggestions?
I can take that. Like, I think, look, it's a top of mind question, Janvi, for everybody, because the world really is changing. Having said that, I think the one answer even for an industry as VC, which is highly network driven, right? That is only a part of the puzzle. There are specific AI tools that actually do very good market research for you. There are specific AI tools that will help you make the best documents, the best presentations, the best way to analyze Excel sheets, the best pivot tables, etc. So today, what you're seeing is that there's a bunch of these small tools that are coming up, solving for each and every part of the puzzle in a day-to-day workflow of an investor.
Right.
I think just being proficient with some of those is a good place to start. There are some courses that you can do online, but if you're a self-starter today, you can also like figure it out yourself. But basically being, having your own suite of like hey, these are the 5-6 tools I use on the back of which my efficiency is 2x, 3x. I think if you can get yourself to that point in the next 6-8 months, you are already like top 1%. You're way ahead of majority of the other folks around you. which will really kind of help. Then I would argue over and above that, I think to the networking point, I think that continues to be the case. And for that, you basically need to hustle and get yourself at the eye of the storm. If that means
Right.
that you have to reach out to a bunch of people cold, so be it. You'll be surprised how many people actually respond to a cold email if it's well crafted and well written. I often respond to cold emails too. So it's just about, like, again, putting in all the hard work before you send the email. But if you do, you will get a response 1 out of 10 times for sure. And then you can kind of start building your network from there. So I think it's just about, like, being okay with a couple of no's and just hitting enough darts at the board. But on the AI piece, I would just say, build a your personal productivity stack of 5 tools, saying, hey, these are 5 tools I use daily, because of which my life is so much better.
Mhm. Right. Interesting. Thank you.
I think I already talked about it sort of in terms of hard skills, right? At growth stage, being able to understand public markets also becomes relevant because many of the companies that you would invest in would be IPO candidates or would likely, go for a strategic outcome, etc., like an exit event in a 4 to 5 year time frame. So to be able to comp them, to be able to understand what more mature companies in this space are doing, even if they are not direct comms, how public market investors would be thinking about it. Building that lens helps. That can be developed over time, but leverage technology to your advantage, like Kriti is saying. Everybody is developing their own productivity stack, using different tools. And the key is, right, to be able to ask right questions, even if you are using technology. So you can use technology to that extent where you are able to ask smart questions in a limited time period from the people you are interacting with to be able to value add to them as well as get some value from those interactions yourselves. So leverage technology to that way. And I think fundamental skills are important. You have to know Excel sheets, you have to know financial statements.
Yes.
You should be able to read not just P&L, but balance sheet and cash flow statements, be able to understand the nuances of the business from their audited financial statements. These are some of the given things which are very important at growth stage and cannot be overlooked. And if you have not done financial modeling, etc., spend some time learning those skills, so that you have a start, over your peers when you are interviewing for those roles.
Right. Thank you so much, Sarvi. This helps.
We just have we can take one last question. How would you suggest someone from a healthcare strategy and analytics background, pre-MBA, build a network in the PVC industry from the outside? This is from Aditi. And then we'll end.
You want to take it, Subi? Should I?
I was just thinking, I have an idea. I don't know how successful would it be, but I think you have a very unique vantage point of view because as investors, we're always looking to speak to industry experts. So if
Yeah.
you're already working in healthcare strategy and analytics, right? You can approach it by sharing what about the nuances of XYZ, healthcare subsector that you are in, and how is it going to shape the future in healthcare, right? And where there are opportunities for healthcare or health tech startups to be built, because that is one area where a lot of innovation is yet to be seen. And there are specific people who do invest in health tech. Health tech is generally core for everybody, but given the business models are still evolving, it is not very actively invested in. So I am sure, at early or growth stage, investors would be interested in hearing your point of view on how, industries are going to transform basis what you are seeing real time, happening. I think that's an approach you could consider when trying to network don't think of yourself as an outsider. Everyone brings some value to the table and just leverage it to your advantage.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add one thing, and maybe this question is more broadly for anybody who is thinking of transitioning. Don't think of yourself as an outsider, like Surbi said. Think of yourself as a specialist. That this is something that you know much better than anybody else who's seeing too many things at 30,000 feet view. So use your position as advantage. Use that to find insights about that market that somebody who's only looked at it from a high level will never know, and approach the conversation with that insight. You will be able to engage like some of the smartest people because you have something unique to offer. So just like that's what I would say. Think of yourself not as an outsider, but as a specialist.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to both.
I think we can wrap now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
I think really well done, both of you, Janvi and Praditi. Congratulations, because as I mentioned, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there in front of everyone. So very well done for taking that leap and participating in this interview in front of everyone. We are sure everyone took away something valuable from watching it. Also wanted to congratulate Surbhi. You've been promoted to Senior Vice President.
That's so kind of you.
Congratulations to you.
Thank
Very
you.
great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. That brings us to the end of this series. We hope this session gave you some mutually useful insights to take away. A big thank you to our amazing speakers for such a thoughtful and inspiring session and taking out the time. Requesting everyone to share your key takeaways of this session over social media with the hashtags #WinP and #WinPIgnite. And don't forget to tag WinP so we can amplify your posts. In case you missed any part of the series or want to go back to a session, all of them are available on YouTube. The link is in the chat box below, so feel free to check it out. The channel is WinP Forum on YouTube. For the lucky draw winners who submitted their CVs for review, we'll be sharing feedback over email by the end of next week after the review process is completed. And finally, if you haven't already, please do join the WinP Ignite WhatsApp group. That's where we share updates on upcoming sessions and job openings. And also feel free to invite other women who might be interested to this group. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care and have a great weekend. Thank you, Surbhi, and thank you, Priti.
Thanks a lot. Really enjoyed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for
Bye-bye.
joining us.
Thanks, Ruby. Thanks, Ruby. Thank you, Ankita.
Thank you, everyone.